Posey for me. So,
I'm saying.
I appreciate very happy to have you here today in our committee appropriations subcommittee hearings. So I'll go ahead and give the floor to you to hear about Mississippi wildlife, fisheries, and parks.
Yes, sir. We thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to come and present our budget request this year. We're going to do some folks I brought with me. Andre Hollis, our Director of Parks. Andy Walker is the Director of the Floors Complex up here when you see the new playground and all. And of course, y'all know Jennifer, she's been working with us here for a number of years. And I'd like to start out this afternoon. Since we've had so much discussion about parks, I'd like to start out talking about parks. And try to give you over some of the things we've accomplished since y'all give us this money last year. Received about 3.5 million through the 21 legislative session, and we think that we've done handled it in a manner that you'd be proud of the way we worked on it. And we want to show you what we've done with it. And just right off the bat to begin with, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that the folks at MDWFP feel like the parks are in the appropriate place, and we can do a good job managing the parks and making park system something to be proud of as we go forward. In the 21 legislative process, we received 3.5 million earmarked for the state parks through the DFA's appropriation. And this funding was used to match the federal fund allocation through the Land, Water, Conservation Fund. In other words, we pretty much doubled the money that you gave us. This kicked off our actual three-phase capital improvement plan for the state parks. We're trying to work on cabins, which is not available for the ARPA funding. So with that three-phase, during the first phase, we took your 2.5 million and actually turned it into about a little over $9 million through the Land, Water, Conservation Fund. And I might mention it didn't go as quick as we thought it would. Part of it's still not complete, but we sent some of our people to Atlanta over there to discuss this with them, and we feel like even though it slowed us down some of the questions and things they had for us, we feel like we've got a really good working relationship with a bunch of Atlanta, the administrators of Land, Water, and Conservation Fund. So we're looking forward to a better working relationship as we move forward. Some of the things that we did is I hope you'll be able to see this later on this summer. We committed some of the department's money to $400,000 of it to redo 2 cabins over at the Roosevelt State Park, and we hope to get y'all over there to see that later on this summer. We're working now to develop a business plan for the state park system, and not only just the system, but for each individual park. I think it's appropriate that each park has its own business plan, and we actually meet with the University of Southern Mississippi team next week to start working on that plan. We're currently putting a new reservation system in the state park to have a new vendor. The vendor will be Ateneo, and they're going to help us with the reservation, things of that nature for the park. We just need updating, and we think we picked a good vendor to do that. We've also been working with other legislators and budget analysts regarding the eligible infrastructure for ARPA. We personally identified the 61 million in projects that include improvement, renovation, campsite, water, sewer, electrical, and road system, bathhouses, ventilation, electrical transformers, and storm culvert drainage. On a side note, I am working with the Public Service Commission to possibly help with some of the electrical improvements that will take a little burden off the ARPA funds there as far as the infrastructure, electricity in the park. The infrastructure in the park, or the deteriorating infrastructure of the park, is one of the really significant problems that we have. The roads, the water, the sewer, electricity, all of them are built many years ago, and we've maintained them both basically ourselves. The department has over the years without just through the funding that the legislature has provided us for us. In addition to the money that's we've identified, the DFA has identified another 44.5 additional funding in ARPA funds for wastewater, water well, and ventilation improvements. MDA, I know, has requested $1 million in the funds to do a pilot program that's possibly helping us market some of the parks. We've not had a lot of money to spend on the park as far as marketing over the years. We believe with some marketing improvements, it'll make a big difference in our program there. Outside the capital improvements, we've applied for and received grants to AmeriCorps for 8 parks. These AmeriCorps groups have assisted with trailer renovations, RV campsites, leveling, hurricane cleanup, de-limbing around the park, painting, light carpentry, and many other things. We have an invitation out to bid, and I'm sure you've heard a little bit about that for the operation of 4 of our state parks and 2 of the golf courses. It's our intention to see what is available out there. The Senate had a bill last year. The commission is moving some of these things along. Not our intent to privatize any parks. We just want to see what's available. We have some really good working situations right now. That's been a win-win for everybody as far as public and private partnerships. The City of Goshen for the operation of Shepherd State Park, Scenic Rivers Alliance down at Macomb at the Quail Hollow Golf Course. The City of Grenada is operating the Dogwoods Golf Course right now. The City of Rosedale has the operation of the Great River Road State Park, and the new playground you see across the road over here at the interstate, the Florida Club is courtesy of a donation of $3.9 million that Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation works with our museum and the Children's Museum on that operation there. We feel like that this, as you well know, it's a lot of money coming into the state that's unusual. And sometimes I know from y'all standpoint, it's tougher when you have more money than it is less money. Sometimes it's easier to say no than it is to figure out how to do with the money. So I wish you well in that respect. But we feel like it's a generational opportunity here for the parks. And the time now there is to invest in the park. We feel like it probably take 5 to 10 years to actually get the parks up to the standards that they need to be in. But with your continued funding and support, Wildlife Department, we'll stand ready to help restore our parks to a level that the legislature and the citizens of Mississippi can be proud of. Getting down a little bit to the numbers, that's what we all come to talk about. As far as the budget, we are going to request the restoration of our general funds of $3.4 million, and we'd also like to look at the restoration of the special funds on 5.3. We request that increase there. We'd also like to go back with the phase 2 of our 3-phase project for state capital park improvements. When you figure all this up, we also like, as time goes on, phase 3 would also be another 4.5, and that would give us $27 million we spent on the cabins there in the state parks over a 3-phase time frame there. And that coupled with the infrastructure money that we hope will be spent improving the park infrastructure, that would put we think our parks back and start to be where they need to be. Part of the request for funding would also include $400,000 for our chronic wasting disease. I checked on it this morning. We've had disease continues to spread. We've had 38 new cases this hunting season, and they're projecting probably 50 of them. So continued testing is critical to try to maintain the control of this disease. And our driveway over the administration building needs resurfacing, it along with the entrance way there. And it's going to cost about $1 million to do that. We'd like to request that. The Natural Science Museum is in bad need of remodeling the entrance there, and the estimates on that is going to run about $2.9 million. We would also request that we reinstate all the pins, the 160 pins total. 15 were abolished there under the FY22 appropriation bill, and we would need those reinstated for the cadets that we have in place, and the other 145 pins for the SEC squared impacts, as well as transitional and contractor workers that we would move to a permanent status. Visited with Max earlier there. We provided him with the cost of our implementation of the SEC Square program, which will cost about $5.7 million to fully implement that. And we have at present 21 cadets that we're trying that have completed the Lakota training school, and 8 of them now are out in the field because they were already pre-sworn officers, and we have 13 of them in Malota that we will use some of those pins to take place there. And while we're sitting here talking about the law enforcement part of it, I wanted to just echo a little bit of what Commissioner Tyndall said about increasing for salaries for some of our statewide sworn law enforcement officials. We feel like our law enforcement officials at MDWFP are some of the best trained in the country, and it's getting harder and harder to recruit law enforcement people, and especially retain them once you have them there. We are really proud of the work that's been going on over at the Florida Bluff Museum, and we're going to request some additional funding for that as time goes on. We've been able to get some federal money, but some of the additional improvements over there that we're looking at have needed money to match with would be a phase 1 clearing, which you've already seen all that, in the new playground. That's just an initial construction there. Phase 2 would include a new entrance to the park over there, and future plans would possibly include a pedestrian walkway over Lakeland Drive to connect all the museums over there and really turn the Lakeland, the Florida Bluff area to a really nice park over there.
Commissioner, I don't mean to, I hate to interrupt you because I do want to hear this, but we do have a very tight schedule, and I need to allow for some opportunities for senators to ask questions. I also want to recognize Chairman Kincaid from the House came over and visited us, and our chairman is up with the Lieutenant Governor right now. He just sent me a text that he wishes he could be down here. But if you don't mind, I would like to allow for senators to ask questions as necessary where they see fit. And then I've got a couple of things I want to go over with you real quick in our last 5 minutes that we have here. Senator, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chairman.
Go ahead and just turn the microphone off on the top. Slide it towards you. There you go.
How many officers do we have? Law enforcement on the ground officers do we have at this time?
There's 171 as of today, the full-time officers, and we've got 21 new cadets. 8 of them are in the field, and 13 of them are in Malota.
So in 2016, when we gave the increase, license fee increase, and we had 177 officers, we've actually reduced the number of officers.
Well, it'd be 171 plus the 21.
Yeah, coming up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're starting to recruit for a new class now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Butler, thank you for joining us today. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, how everybody doing? I just had one question. You mentioned Persequin State Park. What kind of funding did you have down here for the park? And did it go up, or is it basically stay the same?
Just 1 second, I looked at the budget. It is about the same as it has been being. You know, the scenic rivers leases the golf course out down there.
Yes, sir.
We actually maintain the park itself, and it's one of the parks that we just recently redid the clubhouse down there, and it's one of the parks that has actually managed to make money over the years, as you probably already know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And to keep it funded with as much money as you guys will give us to fund it with.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You have a question? Use your microphone.
You talked about this, the CWD, is that mostly contained to?
Turn your mic on.
It is. It's mostly in North Mississippi, a little bit down, and we just found some new cases over in Warren County, 2 new cases over there. And for the first time ever, there's two two detected over in Alabama across the line from Tishomingo County. Always been detected in Mississippi, but most of them are right across the Tennessee line, and with these new cases that they found in Warren County, they seem to think that possibly this disease has actually moved from Tennessee north and then back down a little bit.
Sir, Paul. All right, great. Commissioner, what I would like to do in the last minute and a half, well, half a minute that we have. I don't know who you want me to interface with, but I would like to get you and the agency. This is my first year handling wildlife's budget. There's some things that I've been asked to do, but what I would like for us to look at is I'd like to break out parks and everything to do with the parks, and look at the budget for that in the same categories of expenditures that we have, as well as the source of funding. And then your other department needs, including your museums and your other agency needs. It's obviously rolled up into one bill and under one budget. I believe there's been some discussion on how do we determine how to move forward in the best way possible. So we'd like to look at that. Also, I'd like to look at your request or additional requests that you have for ARPA money and how you're going to leverage that with the other sources of funds that you discussed, and the other opportunities to apply for other grants. And I'd like to look at that as well and see how that looks out. With respect to the agency itself, I want to look at your request that you have, which is significantly higher than what our LBR is, especially for salaries. And I want to know if that is or where SEC 2 or squared comes in. And let's look at that and see. Let me understand that a little bit better. So I'll be working with you over the next couple of weeks to get this information together, and so that I can get back with the chairman and go through with that. But I do appreciate your time coming in today. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
We'll put that information together and make it available to you.
Okay, Chairman Kincaid, anything that you would like?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, I'll go ahead and consider this hearing closed. Thank you very, very much for coming in today.
In their budget request, they do actually break it down by each division.
Hmm.
So
In this,
you'll see it, it's one of the agencies is specifically Parks and Recreation, and then
I want to see.
Squirrel lined up or something? Got this squirrel lined up or something? Squirrel. Ain't no deer left in the city.
All right, I have it at 1:20. And as of this time, we do not have anybody from the Veterans Affairs here to speak with us. So that's kind of interesting because they're usually the ones that are on time and always. So hope it's all the best. We will.
Let me go check in 269. Make sure.
Yeah,
they're
you can go check with
yonder
them.
Over there.
But this is a budget that I've dealt with for the past 2 years. So there's some things that I know that we're going to work on, especially dealing with the homes and getting us some additional information. We've made some changes and we've provided some additional dollars. And I would like to know how that money was spent. And then hearing from their requests, because they've offered, or they have requested a significant increase over prior year. And I just want to take a look and see how that's going. And they're getting an update on progress for the home in South Mississippi. So members of the committee, subcommittee will follow up on it and see. Our next scheduled, hey, Kelvin, our next budget that we should have is the Veteran Home Purchasing Board. They're up at 145. So we'll wait and see if they come in early, we'll try to get them early. How about that?
Okay, so we just wait to 145.
Yeah, if I can get them in early, I'll be here. I just don't want you to jump up and run off and I don't want to start without you.
Okay, I'll hang around.
All right, thank you, buddy.
Grab a soda and stick around.
All right, be right here, bro.
Kelvin, if you can hear me, we just got notification that Director Pickering is in the building, is on his way here. So we'll start this hearing in just 1 second.
Sure, I hear you. Yes, sir.
Howdy, sir. Good. Make sure I got my times right here. So got until about 1:45.
Yeah, I have. multiple.
So you got
counties.
15 minutes. We'll run through this real fast. Seymour, yes. Okay. So Director Pickering, I'm glad to turn the floor over to you. Thank you for coming in and joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see. We have that on. We got Senator Butler join us. We have two budgets. Remind everybody that last year y'all took us out front of the state personnel board so we can start addressing nursing salaries and shortages in our homes. So we have two budgets. 733 is our state veterans home budget. This is comprised of private pay from families for their daily care, and the VA provides us a daily grant per diem per resident. And that's always a little confusion when we get toward the end of the session. Folks are looking at swipeable funds, and those are federal grant dollars that have to be spent on the homes. And so this actually helps us on that front. What we're asking for on that front is actually an increase of 6.6 million in spending authority. So there's no state dollars in that. Those are federal funds that we're asking for. 153 pins, that is the staffing for the new home on the Gulf Coast. So we'll start, as a matter of fact, I've already started that process of bringing in our first administrator. And over the next year, we'll slowly be adding and building that staff up as we get ready to open that home October of 23. And you'll see the costs there for those pins. Part of that new home is the purchase of 3 vehicles. I know vehicle and the fleet in the state is always an issue, so we want to make sure we're clear on that. That will be a bus for transportation, a 15-passenger van, as well as a truck for our maintenance staff and crew at that home. Those will all be paid for with federal dollars and the grant for the construction cost of that home. You'll notice we also are looking at spending authority for increased cost. That's the best guess we can get right now when dealing with our vendors. As we've had other folks, nobody else can tell us where inflation is going, but we have already seen a 7% increase in food costs this year, 2% cost increase on durable medical goods from our providers. And so we're working closely with them, and we think that 2% is locked in for the next 12 months. At least that's when I say durable medical goods, those would be the diapers, our insurers, our boosts, our wheelchairs, all those details that goes in running the home. Renovations, we're renovating Oxford, our Collins this year. We're requesting $2 million in spending authorities will allow us to do Oxford next year. All the homes have been 20 years since they were constructed with no major renovation. So we're actually moving some walls. This is the common living areas from the dining rooms to the what used to be the old smokers rooms being converted now into the library, kind of a quiet room, redoing the lobby, the entrance. One of the problems with where our receptionist sits, a guest can walk past, but during COVID, we need to screen, we need to register. So we actually have technology now. When people come to the home, they get the main badge, it can take their temperature, it logs it all into our electronic medical records so that we can track who's been in and been out of the home at those times. So it allows us to work on that. Any questions on 733?
Yeah, I do have a question real quick on your FY23 request for salaries is at 23, almost 24 million. Does that difference from your estimate and or from LVR, is that the 5 million that you expect that you're going to have for the new homes or for the pins for the new homes?
It is.
Okay.
I mean, those 153 pins are totally for tradition.
Okay, and again, these are all federal funds. It's all special or other special funds, correct? All right, great. All right, go ahead on 33.
Our other budget is 731. That is our State Veterans Affairs Board. It is a combination of state general funds and federal funds. And I'll walk you through the general funds first. We are requesting a slight increase of $105,308. That is for 3 new pins for the Newton Cemetery. The cemetery right now has right 1,300 veterans and family members buried there. And the more headstones you get, the more weed eating it takes to pick more people. That's not an automated process. And so we are right now expanding that cemetery, putting in 1,500 new crypts this year. It was a construction meeting this morning. This will just gives us those 3 additional pins that we can hire to put it over to care for that cemetery. Federal fund request, I'm sorry, let me back up. Oh, those 3 new pins. Federal fund request spending authority. We are looking at an increase there and allowing us to right size our HR and our finance department and actually develop a true payroll. We have 735 employees once Tradition gets open. When I came in, our HR department was 1.5 people, and we had some major issues and problems, as you can imagine. So this is actually 5 additional pins being paid for with federal dollars, and just asking the legislature for the authority to do that. It'll put 3 new pins in our finance department for a total of $183,000, as well as the pins used in our HR department in developing the payroll. Make sure our staff gets paid timely and on time. We are asking for some additional contractual services as we begin Medicare and Medicaid application. We do have to contract in Car Rigs Ingram does our cost allocation that will turn into CMS, as well as bringing in a group called HMR to help our staff make that conversion to billable hours and coding and all those issues for the first couple of years. This will be a terminated contract eventually, but for right now, we need to come make that transition. That will give us the additional revenue stream so that we can increase and stabilize our nursing staff and not rely so heavily on temp staff, what we call contractors or temp staff to come in the door. And so that is 7:31. Be glad to entertain any questions.
Okay, Senator Seymour, you have any questions? Senator Butler, you have any questions you'd like to ask?
No, sir.
Senator Moran.
You mentioned something about the redoing the walls with smokers from like y'all on non-smokers.
They went inside several years ago. They actually, when I came in, they had banned it on the total property. We're in discussions now of how we can bring that to a side property. Being a nursing home, it's a little different environment. You've got our veterans who have been smokers since they were 13 years old and stole them from their granddaddy in the military. That culture, asking an 85, 90-year-old man to stop is a difficult issue. Same thing goes along. We've already been in the Department of Revenue. Almost 2/3 of one of our homes, the residents have a prescription for a 2-ounce toddy in the evening. So we're pretending like it's medicinal purposes, but we're actually part of the thing will be actually put in a bar and make it a social thing for them in the evening for about 30 minutes.
So y'all gonna have fun with that new deal with that.
Oh, there you go. So that's a conversation we're having with the Department of Revenue. The laws will allow us to do that. Our food service provider will actually hold the license on those issues for us, and that'll improve the quality of life. We had a gentleman pass away in Oxford. We got ready to clean his room, and we found a case of Burnett's vodka hidden in every sock, slipper, shoe, under his mattress, and they were acting like frat boys and hiding it from everybody. And so they shouldn't have to be living like that and doing that.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, what other, I see, a lot of this is you receive federal funds. Are you getting any one-time monies through any of the other funds that are coming or the bills that have been passed up from Washington that you will have benefit of?
Those have already been committed this year. What we did get, it was covering our losses last year. CARES Act funds, we got there right at the end of the year. We did get what's the 4th round of funding right now on some of the lost revenue that went to nursing homes and hospitals. We got $2 million, but that plugged holes of our overages this year on temp staff, so that we're not coming asking for deficit appropriation for our operations on that front. We've been able to plug those holes.
Okay, we've been anticipating Harrison County coming online for a couple of years now in this budget. It looks like that FY23 will be the year that we'll start with the pins, and
correct.
That's going to be a significant jump and request. But again, it's all spending authority for those federal funds. So we just need to make a note of it.
Last year, we did add the administrative pins. I think
Correct.
6 or 7.
Yes.
So the first one of those has been filled. Of course, because of COVID, we're a year delayed from where we thought we would be on the construction and opening of this home. And so we'll have most of those 7 filled before next fiscal year comes around.
Go ahead.
When it's up and running at full capacity, what do you think the number of beds will be?
100 beds.
100 beds.
We will open it up next fall, next winter for our current residents to make early application before we open it to the public. We will be. I think so. I think so. We already have quite the list of our Collins residents that are excited to move closer to home.
All right, well, going back to your general fund request, we'll need to work. I'll work with you on that and try to work through making sure that I understand that completely. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions or anything?
We do have one other request that's in the booklet there, and is for a deficit appropriation. This came about last week. The IRS issued demand to 7 state agencies. We were one of those who use contract nursing, contract staff. State of Mississippi does not have a basic insurance, health insurance policy that we can offer to those contract employees. The IRS looks at it. If I tell them when to work and what to do, then they're an employee, and we have to offer them to comply with the Affordable Care Act. Our first 2017, before I became director, we received that demand. It was in excess of $2 million. It's been negotiated down. The Attorney General has hired outside counsel, has been handling this, and we received notice last week that it had been negotiated down to $103,112.50. And so what we're asking for, I contacted Liz Welch over at DFA to see if they were going to handle this as a lump sum or is it going to the Attorney General. The plan right now, every agency requested and we handle it and we pay it on our own. The legislature decides a different tack, but I do need to make that request so that we can't pay this fine. It is going to be ongoing for, I think, all 7 state agencies from 17, 18, 19, 20, and some of us in 21 probably. One of the agencies thinks they found a workaround because the state still does not have that basic insurance policy there. So they're paying a temp staff agency to provide their contract employers. So they're actually paying more because they're having to pay an administrative cost. We had not gone there. And so we're looking at that as an option. We have an interview with that company to see, because doesn't make sense to keep getting dinged.
Okay, so that's an FY22 deficit appropriation request.
Correct.
And
Because that's for a fine from the IRS.
that is in general funds. You're aware.
Yeah, that's.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is that negotiated settlement for all the past dues?
No, that's just for 2017. We've already received the 18 demand. It's being negotiated now, is my understanding. They told us probably 6 months before we get that number. And then we received week before last, I received the demand from the IRS for 2019, and that's been turned over to the Attorney General's office.
What were those requests? Well, I mean, what were they wanting to fine you?
I forget what 19 was. I think, let's see. I mean, 18, it was 1.8 for 19. That was the newest one. I forget what 18 was because that's been over a year since we received that demand and we just turned it
I
over.
believe, Chairman, they're all around the same amount. They're all around that 2 million.
Do we have something in place now that prevents this from going forward?
Talk about this later on.
Currently, we do not. Because we have to have a basic insurance policy satisfied. Yeah, it is.
Discuss it later.
Okay.
And like I said, I think we're not the highest one. Department of Corrections, Mental Health, and Department of Health were the 3 highest.
Okay.
That were issued.
Let me ask one question. Mr. Richard, is there any way that we can package all of them and try to sell on all of them at one time?
I'll talk to you about that later.
Yes.
Sir, Maureen,
That's my pay grade.
do you have anything else?
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate y'all coming in.
Appreciate it.
Melissa, thank you.
Mr. Hobson, how are you?
John.
Tal Road. Very nice to meet you.
We like those roads.
Okay.
And we are streaming on YouTube as well as Oversight.
Go back and watch it later.
It's 1:42. I want to go ahead, since we got everybody here, to go ahead and get started. We have 15 minutes for this hearing. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in today. Would like for you to please leave your microphones on since we are live. Senator Kelvin Butler is joining us away from the Capitol as well. But I want to go ahead and welcome you here today. This is my first time handling your budget. I look forward to working with you. So, go ahead.
Thank you.
My name's John Kaiser, and this is,
Tal Roads.
and I'm the executive director for the Veterans Home Purchase Board. First of all, just for those of you that might not be familiar with our agency, we were started in 1936 by the legislature to basically work with veterans that are coming off active duty or in a veteran status to help them acquire housing. And we did our first loan for veterans in 1946, and basically we go in and we purchase the house for the veteran, utilizing the trust fund that we got established, that was established by the legislature in 1936. We utilize that trust fund to purchase the house for the veteran, and the veteran makes payments back to the trust fund so that we can make loans to other veterans. The last time that the agency received an appropriation from the state of Mississippi was 50 years ago in 1972. Other than that, we just primarily just use our own funds from the payments that we get from the veterans. So it's technically the veterans' money that we're loaning out to other veterans to help them acquire housing. As far as our budget for 2023, you'll see some increases. We had some when I took over a year ago. We had some building renovations that we went in and made. It's been about 20 years since we had any updates to the building. We replaced the carpet, took down some wallpaper that had some nice blue stains coming through, and painted the entire building and just try to make it a little bit more receptive, nice environment for our veterans to visit and come to when they needed us. So we did those renovations. We had some equipment updates and things along those lines that we did, and replacing some older equipment to just kind of help and improve the day-to-day operations. The other increases you might see in working with the SPB and looking at the SEC Square initiative that they were doing, we realized that there was some salary inequities for people that had the same job title, same job duties and description that were making less than other people that with the same tenure, in some cases less tenure. So we wanted to make that, try to get everybody, those people all on as close to an even keel salary as possible. Some of those differences were as much as $20,000. So we just really would like to be able to, if they've got the same job description, same PIN number, we'd like to get them as close to the same salary as possible.
Is that reflected in your FY23 request?
It is.
Okay, so that does that determine, or is that the difference between your LBR and the request itself?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, other than that, the primary increase you see is just 3% basically for inflation, which reports indicate that we're probably closer to about 7%, but we only asked for about a 3% increase to meet the needs of inflation, inflationary costs. I think that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, if you would, talk to me about your, you've got a pretty big jump in subsidies from 21 actuals to what you expect in 22 to in your request is pretty much in line with what your estimate is.
We're trying to be prepared in case we have an inflow of loans. Right now, we're at a depressed state as far as the number of loans. We at a peak probably had about 2,200 loans in our portfolio. Now we're down to about 1,200. So at any point when the market turns, we're going to be more desirable because our interest rate is usually lower than what the general market is. So our maximum loan amount is over $500,000. So as you can imagine, with several $500,000 loans, we would eat through that subsidies category pretty quickly. So it's a preparation for any upcoming business we may have.
Once the private sector rates begin to increase, our rates are going to be more attractive, especially to the veterans, because it will increase that spread between our rate and what the private sector rate is. As that increases, we're going to increase the number of loans we have on the books. So like Tal said, we're at about 1,200 loans now with the average loan of about 220,000. And we've done some things over the past year. We've created an online application to make it easier for the veteran to go onto our website and apply for a loan on the website itself. We're adding other electronic measures to allow them to upload their documents to the loan securely and things along those lines to try to increase that loan volume. So right now, our primary effort has been to grow that loan portfolio and to provide more veterans with the benefit that we offer.
Okay, I've got some other questions, but first of all, Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Anyone? Kelvin, do you have any questions?
No.
So going back to subsidies, give me examples of expenditures that you expect
Sure.
with your subsidies.
Our subsidies is primarily, and I'm trying to give you a percentage, 97% loans to veterans. That's what comes out of that category.
So is it that those are the actual principal amounts that you're
That's the money
that you're
we
loaning.
loan out. That's
Okay.
correct, to the veteran.
all right? What is your overall trust fund balance at this time?
Total assets are about a little over 250 million.
Okay.
And roughly 155 million is already tied up in current loans. So that would leave roughly 100 million. And at 500,000 a loan, which is our new limit, that would only go as far as 200 loans for us.
What's your geographical dispersion rate? I mean, what do you look like? Where are you more heavily in other parts, in some parts of the state versus others?
It's going to probably go right along with population. I mean, that's one of the things our board looks at every month is to choose where the loans are made and what counties. But it's pretty dispersed all over the whole state. We've got loans in every county across the state, and obviously the more populated areas have the higher impact of those loans, but we've got them in every county.
And what is your default rate?
We're averaging right now,
Less than 5.
yeah, it's less than 5%. I want to say probably around 3%. The pandemic is kind of with what we can do and as far as foreclosures and things along those lines. And we do everything we can to work with the veteran. Right now, we've got 9 foreclosures just because of the moratorium and the VA hold on any foreclosures. And one of the things we're looking at, and I'll talk to my people about, is trying to, if we can, rewrite those loans before we let them actually go into foreclosure.
Okay, so you do have a number that's in default that you are not, or that you're unable to foreclose on, correct? I mean, what's,
Yeah, I think we've got like 3 loans that are,
It's a very small number.
okay,
Less
good.
than- Less than 5.
yeah, so I think it's like 3 that are in actual foreclosure, and a couple of those we're still talking to.
Okay. Do you carry a loan loss reserve fund as well?
Currently, we do not.
Okay.
It's usually such a, the VA offers guarantee for us, so we usually don't have any losses.
Okay.
Most of our loans have a 90% guarantee by the VA.
Okay. So of these other special funds that you're requesting funding from or spending authority from, you get federal funds. Do you have any new federal dollars that come in, or is it 100% operated out of your
Special fund.
special funds? That's your trust fund, correct?
Yes, sir.
The VA then backs the loans, correct? So if there is a default, 90% of that would go back to the Veterans Administration?
VA.
Okay. And as far as qualifications go, I'm sure you've got them in here, but for, as far as qualifications go, what advantage would you provide a home buyer? Is it, will you take a higher risk, i.e. a higher credit score than what you would find in a normal traditional
The board
conventional
doesn't-
financing?
The board doesn't really look at credit or look at credit scores. They look at the overall job history, assignment, where they've been, what they've done. They do look at some of the credit, but primarily the decision is based on their service and what they've done.
And who makes that? Where's your board located?
They're located in all of the, what is it, 1970?
Yeah, the districts throughout the state. We've got 6 board members that are appointed by the governor.
One at large and 5 from each of the 5 congressional districts have accommodated.
Okay. And how many new loans do you do a month?
We're averaging, I think we just looked at it, what's right around 10 loans a month.
And that's a little slower than we would like and slower than it has been in the past.
Is there anything that you're seeing in the market that would, that you can attribute that slowdown to? I mean, other than just uncertainty, but I mean, is there
Now,
something?
the big thing that's probably affected us most of, more than anything, has been the private sector rates. When that margin between the private sector rate and our rate closes, it's easy. The private sector is a lot more aggressive in wanting to get those loans. They do a lot of advertising. If you look on any social media site, you'll see a lot of the, we call them teaser rates in the agency, the 1.75, the 2%, those type advertisements that lure a lot of the veterans in. We do everything in our power we can to try to prevent that. When they call in for payoffs, we try to let them know that you're not going to get that 1.75. It's probably going to be closer to 4%. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't.
Chairman Moran?
On the average, what is your rate?
We offer 2 rates. We offer a 15-year rate at 2.5, which is the floor that the statute will allow us to loan at, and then 2.75 on 30. But we have no points. There's no other discount points or anything included in that.
No origination fees or anything like that?
And as they make monthly payments, that goes back
Into the trust fund.
It does, and the interest grows our fund, which we operate out of and make more loans out of.
See more? Anything? Mr. Chairman, anything else? Well, I appreciate this. I love learning a little bit more about this and how this works. And it's glad to see that you're successful and that you've got a great track record of maintaining your trust fund. And should be model for many other communities to work off of when they're looking at ways to help with housing in local areas. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and consider this hearing closed. If there's no other questions. All right. Thank you very much for your time today.
Appreciate y'all. All right, thank you. No, he's not.
Yeah, Governor, we pretty much turned over all of our board members. They're all, y'all will vote on all 6 of them.
Yeah, we miss Bob. Good to see you too.
There seems to be varying opinions about it. Are you not gonna stay for my presentation? I know it. $15. I really need about 30 or 45. Okay. Actually, I think I can do this in 5 minutes.
Go ahead and turn your microphone on if you would. You are turned on. That's good.
All right.
We have Kelvin Butler that's off campus here with us today. We're also on our wonderful YouTube channel. So when you do talk, make sure your microphone's turned on, and I'm expecting that we'll get Seymour to come back in just a second. There he is. So we'll go ahead and turn over to you. Thank you very much for coming. This is my first time being able to handle your budget. Look forward to working with you and your staff to help me through this process. But I'll yield the floor to you, ma'am.
Right. Thank you, Senator Delano. And I want to say, Senator Butler, it's very good to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to see you too, Senator.
Great. So this is the budget for the public utility staff. And just to kind of start off, I want to remind everybody what the public utility staff does. Is we review all of the rate filings for the regulated utilities that are a monopoly in the state. Don't have any competition. So that's Entergy and Pico, Atmos, CenterPoint, Spire, a couple of other smaller gas companies, and then a lot of water and sewer companies.
Did you say Entergy?
Entergy.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Entergy has the largest number of customers.
Mm.
So we review all of their filings, and it is continual throughout the year. It's not like there's one a year. There's filings that we look at. We're driven by the open meetings of the Public Service Commission. So we review all those filings. The accountants look at it. Lawyers look at it. We make our recommendation, and we send it over to the commissioners, who then take it up in a hearing and vote on it. So it is a very important position, I think, that we take on to protect not only the ratepayers, but also the utilities. Certainly we want our ratepayers to pay fair amounts. It's about $6.5 billion that these utilities collect from Mississippians. So we want to make sure that that collection is at the right amount. And also we want to make sure that it's fair to the utilities themselves, because, I want my utilities to be strong. When I turn the light on, I want it to come on, or when I turn my air conditioner on, I want it to come on. So we look at it from all sides, and that's our statutory duty. So our budget request is really for a bit more than we were given last year, and it's all due to salaries. We are a small agency. We have 27 pins, and we put all of our money into salaries. There's some money in travel, which I say should not really be travel. It should be travel and training. It's a very complex financial review that we undertake. You can't just take someone who's been in an accounting firm, or you've got to spend time training these people up. So when I walked in the door a year and a half ago, we had seven empty positions. We'd had a lot of retirements. We'd lost a lot of institutional knowledge. So we've been in a bit of a rebuilding process. We have worked on our job descriptions to really make them a correct job description, and not just a pin, move somebody over to another pin to get them an increase in salary. So we've done a lot of moving around. And I think in that process of moving around some of these pins at the personnel board, then when it came over to Elbow, it translated that we had some empty positions remaining that they took off of our budget. So We need all of those positions. I will say right now, I'm missing an accountant and an attorney. As you've, I'm sure, heard from other agencies, it's hard to hire right now, especially folks with the skills that we need. So we are, but we need that money available so we can hire those folks when we find them. We've advertised for the attorney position twice. The last time we did not, with the salary we had listed, we did not get any applications. So we are juggling some more money into that position and hope to fill that shortly. We're advertising for it right now. The recommendation takes our pins from 27, and I know we're not going to have pins anymore with the new SE squared. We're going to have head count, but it moves it from 27 to 24. I do not agree with that at this time because we're having really a monumental change in utilities right now. You all know electricity, we're moving towards electric cars. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. We're going to take up a docket in February on charging stations. There's a tremendous amount that's going on right now. Entergy has a proposal out there to move a good bit of its generation from natural gas to solar over the next 10 years. So these are all very big issues that are very important to the state of Mississippi. And it is our agency that those recommendations will come from in conjunction with the Public Service Commission. As you know, we've also been tasked with some duties with broadband with the CARES Act money, and we have finished that up. Our money that we've spent is not really accurately reflected on here because this is through July, and so that's when most of the projects finished up. We probably spent another $100,000 on accounting and engineering fees. Out of that broadband application fee, it's $375,000, and that's what we use to administer that grant. That's all gone for these outside accounting and engineering fees. So that is kind of a high level overview. Is our request is for a bit more, all for salaries, training, some upgrades to our mapping system that we think could not only be helpful for all our utilities, but also for some broadband information in the future.
The 264,000 that you show was estimate for other special funds. Is that the fees that you've collected from applications?
That is. So that shows what we had spent through out of the 375, what we had spent through the summer. But I think we probably spent another 100,000 of that on engineering, accounting, and then we'll have some of that left over that we have kind of earmarked. I think the bill language said, just gave pretty broad discretion over what it could be used for. We've kind of targeted maybe some updates in our mapping system, our software, our office as well. When I walked in the first day, I was a bit shocked because it's just open. We have all sorts of confidential information. There's no way to lock down our floor. It's kind of the passageway everybody uses to go to the parking garage. And so we're going to make some physical changes to our space. And we've been working with the Bureau of Buildings in Glen Cornbread to do that.
Do you have an estimate of what SEC squared is going to cost you in salaries?
I am going to see if my Deputy Director, Kyle Brown, can give me that.
Jeez.
It's about $45,000 to $50,000.
Okay. Okay. I'll yield. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Senator, in your authority, as far as with this federal money coming for infrastructure, and the Lieutenant Governor and all is wanting to make sure it's used for water and sewer, underground, 20-year investment types projects. Do y'all oversee that as far of any, from the standpoint of the permitting, like some counties have a county utility authority, and that they should be the group actually divesting the money for the county, and in some cases where the cities and rural they're starting to see conflict between and redundancy of this
So
same use.
we do not regulate those. We do not regulate municipalities except when they serve within 1 mile outside of their city limits. Now, we regulate that because those ratepayers, they're not a city, they don't live in the city, so we're their representative. But we do not have any regulatory authority over rural water associations. So.
Thank you.
Senator Moore.
Going forward, I know we have a lot of federal funds that will be coming in for broadband and other things that are close to your shop. And I'm expecting your workload to increase due to that. Wouldn't that be reflected, or would you have to administer those funds through the use of general funds? Or do you need special fund authority to be able to utilize some of these special funds for the operations of your agency?
So, I don't know if some of that authority will land at my office. If it does, that's fine. And we're ready, willing, and able to handle that. Our telecom division, we don't have as many regulated telecoms. In fact, most all of them, I think, except for one, have deregulated. So we have some space in that area and people with knowledge in that area who could take on that additional responsibility. And that's why we were able to handle the CARES Act money really without adding additional staff. I do think if we were given that responsibility, we would need some additional funding. We would have to hire a couple of people if Mississippi ends up getting the amount of funds that I really think we're going to get, which is significant. In addition to kind of what is already out there that we know of, I think there will be another chunk this summer that's going to come from the infrastructure bill once the mapping is finalized. So we do have a bill that is pending that would take us back to being a special fund agency. So there is a utility, kind of off the subject of broadband, but there's a utility regulatory tax that is collected from the utilities. It's about $6.5 million that could fund that. We've got the bill out there for the PSC and the staff. So really that would fund, I believe, the majority of the staff and commission activities. And as my deputy director and I were sitting talking one day, that money is collected from the utilities, and then it is recovered by the utilities from the ratepayers. So that is ratepayer money that is coming into the state fund, into that special fund, that if it's swept into the general fund, it's really, while certainly every Mississippian benefits from, money that goes in the general fund, that money is intended to go for utility regulation and handle issues surrounding that. So I do think it would be very beneficial for us to return to that special fund and would allow us some flexibility if we were to be given this broadband assignment.
So I think that I'm pretty much in, like many people in the legislature and probably many people in the state of Mississippi who always get a little bit tripped up and confused between the Public Service Commission and the public utility staff and what their roles are. Now that I'm over both of those budgets, I really do want to spend some time, and it doesn't have to be in this hearing, but spend some time understanding where there's overlap, what support services you do, what support services that you provide to the Public Service Commission, and what they do on their own, under their own initiative that the legislature may and appropriations may be more inclined to have the staff work on. So I'm going to ask you to work with me over that because I do want to understand that a lot more and dig into that a little deeper.
We would like that opportunity as well.
Okay, wonderful.
And that would not fit within my 15 minutes.
I greatly understand that. Anything else that you have at this point in time? I want to get this confused.
That's all.
Any other commission or questions from the membership? Yeah, we've got just a few minutes before we'll let the general in. How's your application process going? And your mapping specifically? I know you spoke briefly about mapping. You know, my concerns that the concerns that I've had over the years, making sure that we have proper maps. And I know that your office has been tasked with creating or with addressing the build overs or the overbuilt situations versus unmet or unserved areas. And I would like to again understand that a little bit more and talk with you about that at some point in time.
I've got a little show and tell here, a little map that y'all are welcome to. And we do not have any statutory authority for mapping. So, you know, we've been a little bit on the sidelines. We do have a good bit of information because of the telecom division and some things that are required to be filed through the telecom division. So we've kind of created our own map based on, so this is the FCC map, the latest one that we have from the FCC that is December of 2020. Okay, so I don't have the explanation. I had a little explanation of this too, but anyway, so this is the 2020 FCC map for broadband that is over 25.3. So we deducted anything that was 25.3 and below. What now? Oh, it's 120. It's 120. Yeah. So actually, this shows only 120, 100 down, 20 up. As you can see, the green is where the CARES Act money went. The light blue is a pending NTIA grant. So back at the end of the summer, some of the entities that we worked with, the smaller providers, started calling our office and saying, there's this NTIA grant that we've got to have a governmental partner. Will you be our partner? And my answer was no. No, we're not going to be your partner. No. And then they kept calling. No one could get a rural county. A lot of folks just don't have the sophistication out in our rural areas to step up and say, oh yeah, we'll be a part of that. So finally, you know, I talked to the governor's office about it and he said, yeah, why don't your office take the lead on that. So we did compile an application for 10 different providers, or eight providers, 10 projects, a little bit over 30 million.
Are you the state administrator for NTIA grants?
No, I don't think we have a state administrator.
No one has been designated by the executive branch.
I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know that. Now, I do not know that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Oh, what about RDOF?
We handled the RDOF funding. There's no state administrator. But yet everyone who gets RDOF funding has to be an eligible telecommunications provider, an ETC certification, and the commission certifies that once a year. And that review comes through our office, through our telecommunications division, who then makes the recommendation.
All right.
So anyway,
we want to learn more about that. I want to learn more about that and how that works,
Yeah.
especially.
Let me say one thing. So the light blue is pending. It's about 30 million. We've had many conversations with NTIA and we think that's going to be awarded within the next couple of months. We don't know, within the next couple of weeks. I doubt we'll get 30 million because the entire pot across the United States was 286 million. But I think we're going to get some with the interest that they're showing in our application.
Okay.
The light purple is pending RDOF. You know, that RDOF is given over a period of 10 years, and pending is basically a lot of the satellite providers, folks that have not gotten approval from the FCC yet. The FCC has not said, oh yes, you're good to receive your money. So that money might come through, it might not for those light purple places.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
None.
I'm going to go ahead while y'all finish that up. If you don't mind, I want
Yes.
to bring the military department in
Yes,
since we have such a
None.
short time.
None that is available that is over 100 down. which is a lot, you know, if you had solid, reliable 25.3, you're good, but usually it's not. Yeah. It's 100, yeah. It's 100.
Has Baxter
I've been really good with keeping us on time today. And we got a little tripped up over some map issues real quick. So I don't want to take any other delay. General Bowles, thank you very much for coming in and speak with us today on your appropriations hearing. I'll turn the floor over to you, sir, if you don't mind.
Okay, time. I mean, how much time you want to give me? I mean,
You've got
5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah, you've got about 10 minutes and then we'll ask questions. But I just want to say, first of all, on behalf of us and the entire Senate delegation, thank you very much for what you do for our state and for our country and for the men and women that serve under you and serve with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we couldn't do it without y'all's support, Mr. Chairman, and the military committee's chairman's support. And appreciate y'all taking time to listen to us and hear our story today. We try to keep it simple, but I'm going to start with introducing my team real quickly. Philip Parker is the custodian of our state money, and he works closely with our federal money folks to make sure that we get the maximum use out of the state money that we spend. Is that a good point? Because most of the money you give me here is matched 50% or 75% by the federal government, including payroll and everything that's on here. So we can answer questions on that later. I've got, everybody knows Chris Thomas, who walks the halls of the Capitol here. Chris is also a colonel in the Mississippi National Guard, and he commands our individual training school down at Camp Shelby, which is the third largest in the National Guard system. And I've got Ken Cager with me. Ken's been spending the money y'all give us for infrastructure. He's in charge of our FMO, which is the money that takes the money and puts it into the communities with contractors and keeping our armies up to speed. He also oversees Camp Shelby. So did I miss anybody? Aaron's my aide. And I think we're good. Okay. So Mr. Chairman, we did this to make it simple, and you know that I'm a small business owner, so I'm just trying to keep it simple. And to be very honest with you, I'm always just going to ask you for what we need, period.
Yes, sir.
So the first ask is that we request level funding. The second ask is that the $800,000 you see in the first column, y'all appropriated that to us last year for the first time to fix our utility costs. We get previously y'all were giving us $1 million every year for both utilities and for maintenance and repair. Our maintenance repair requirement is $1 million a year. So we weren't getting any money for utilities. Y'all appropriated utility money to us last year. Our utilities run about $850,000, I think, Ken, per year right now. We are only asking you to leave it at $800,000, but to move it into the general fund because it is a recurring expense. And so you see that in the second column where we've moved that 800,000 up to the general. The big request we've got this year, and I'll be honest with you, I've been deliberate in that I haven't asked for it until we had a little extra money. And then I wanted to raise the issue with you when we did that. But we currently also are appropriate $1 million a year for tuition assistance for our soldiers. It has been that way for over 25 years, $1 million for 25 years. So costs have gone up, tuition has gone up. We got with the universities 2 years ago. We got them to agree to offer free tuition to our guardsmen. And that has had a good 2-year run. It increased our tuition participants from 250 to 350. The problem is that our peers are at 500 and 600 because the state fully funds the tuition expense. And why does that make a difference? So for a guy like me who went to college, and Joel knows this, for a guy like me who went to college, I didn't get academic scholarship. My parents made too much money to get any other scholarship. I did get a National Guard scholarship. So I had enough money to pay for tuition. The young men and women who do not have any other scholarships that follow them to college benefit from our current program. The colleges use all the scholarship money that young man or woman gets and applies it towards the tuition to help pay for that free tuition program. In Alabama and Louisiana and Tennessee, because the state fully funds the program, they get their Pell money and academic money to pay for their room and board, to pay for all their other expenses on top of tuition. So we're behind the curve in competing with those folks. So where our ask is that you fully fund our tuition program at $3 million. That will fund 500 guardsmen going through school per year. That will be complemented by federal money because the tuition cost is about $8,000 a year. And we feel like that's a solution we really need that to work because our competitors, Alabama, Louisiana, and Tennessee, are drawing people who want to go in the Guard. They can go to those schools for free, where we still don't have ours completely worked out. Does that make sense? So, Mr. Chairman, that's our request.
So you're requesting an additional 2 million?
To put into our tuition program to get it properly funded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would take it to a total of 3 million?
3 million
Correct.
total, correct.
Okay.
My last ask is, and we've mentioned this to the Appropriations Chairman, that we would prefer that if you really have money on the table, that you maybe make a down payment on some sort of endowment for this pool of money. We think a $20 million down payment on a long-term endowment will secure this fund. The other states are doing that. And we think that's the proper way to do this and not put it at risk so that we make a promise to a young man their freshman year or woman their freshman year in college that we will pay for tuition. And then that junior and senior year, we don't get the appropriation. And we feel like it's important enough for these men and women to do that. Why you say, and this will be my last comment, why do we want to do this? If we lose that young man or woman to Alabama, Louisiana, or Tennessee, or even Arkansas, we feel like if they go to school there, they join the Guard there, then they're going to marry a young woman or a young man from there, they're not coming back. And so this is a way you can directly impact what some folks call a brain drain out of this state. They'll join the Guard, they'll go to school here, we pay for their tuition, they'll marry here, and they'll stay here. And this is a way you can directly impact that. And so I'll stop there.
Thank you, General.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions? Senator Seymour? Senator Moran, sorry.
I think that's a very true statement.
General, last year, we worked on we worked to get money for capital improvement projects throughout the state. Where do we stand with those projects? And are we on pace to complete those upgrades throughout the state?
Yes, so I could answer that, Mr. Chairman, or I'm going to let Ken Cager talk that for a minute. He's prepared to speak.
Mr. Cage, you can speak from right there if you'd like.
Yeah.
Just turn that microphone on if you would. Whatever just turn your microphone on just so our internet audience can hear it.
I'm going to tell Kenny's on the clock.
Okay, all right, so thank you for your investment in our facilities across the state, first and foremost on behalf of our soldiers out here in the National Guard. Yes, sir, we took, so we broke the state up into 6 different zones, and we got after some of the backlog of maintenance and repair. We took the $5 million investment that y'all appropriated from the last year. And then we're going to match that with another 5 of federal dollars. So you're going to take a $5 million state investment, and we're going to turn that into a $10 million state investment across the state. And if you look at the map, and I have a handout here, we broke the state up into 6 different areas that we want to get after. Because right now, average age across the state is about 45 years of age, right? So it's getting a little bit along in the tooth. So we want to take that money and spread it throughout our state to make sure that, the North gets a certain amount of money as well as the South part of the state. So
Will that take care, will the total amount of expenditure of $10 million, will that take care of your immediate O&M?
Yes, sir. It actually, the backlog of city repairs, what we want to use that $10 million investment to get out.
Okay. Joan, something else that's come up, and my colleagues that have been working on some juvenile justice reform. Of course, the number one thing that they always talk about is youth challenge, and about how successful of a program that is. Is there opportunities to do that in northern part of the state? Do we have facilities that could house a program similar to this? What we have at Camp Shelby?
I can look into it. I'll tell you, Mr. Chairman, I didn't know that states did more than one location until recently in Louisiana. I think like runs 4 locations. If y'all want us to look into that, I'll be glad to look into that and figure out if we need more money, if we can use the same money that y'all are appropriating, and if there's another location available.
Right. I think that would be very helpful for us. I'd like to interject that or insert that information into the work that we're doing for juvenile justice.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
On the average, how many students participate on average per year?
So we graduate about 400 students a year. At Shelby, we run 2 classes of 200 each. I'll tell you, it's a great program. We have a waiting list. Some of those kids come in there because the judge assigns them there. Some folks show up there because an organization assigns them there. And then there's some folks who just volunteer to go. And so it's a great program, but we do have a waiting list to address what you're talking about. So we can run the numbers and see if we can justify doing a second location.
I'll tell you, I went to the high school, Biloxi High School, and a student came up to me and he was excited to be entering into that program.
Yeah.
And
They
I
get
said,
their GED when they graduate, and it really sets them on a path where they can basically reset after a pretty tough,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and he said, look, I've made some horrible mistakes in my life, and I'm excited to be able to participate in this program. And I think that's exactly what a lot of those youth need, men
It's
and
the
women.
structure that they're not getting at home.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
Yes,
that's
sir.
what it is.
Anything else that you have with respect to your budget? Always look forward to working with you and Chris on this. So,
You know, Mr. Chairman, I'll just remind you that just a good news story. We are a $600 million federal budget annually that ebbs and flows with the work that we're doing. This past year, we were 785 million. 30 of the 185 million, in addition to the 600, 30 of that was to send the 155 out to California for training. The other 165 million was our payroll from COVID. So that COVID story continues to be just a great news story. But not only did we put shots in arms, but we brought about $165 million to the Mississippi economy. And I can't be prouder of that. So.
yeah. Let me do this one. Kelvin, do you have any questions? I'm sorry, sir. I didn't recognize you a second ago.
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Anything else?
The group that's in Africa, is that federal payment?
They do. So when you're in Mississippi training status, you're what's called Title 32 National Guard. When you're activated to go deploy overseas, they basically turn you into active duty. So that turns you into Title 10. And while you're on that deployment, you get all the benefits of a regular soldier and on Title 10 orders. So they are.
Senator Seymour, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the rapid deployment out of Gulfport, how do we stand right now?
Okay,
We-
rapid, you talk about the port.
Yes, sir.
Port. Got to Chris, do you know? When you say rapid deployment in my world means that a unit can train at home and deploy from their home station, but that's not what you're talking about. Our TASM down there does that. So, maybe are we marketing the port? Is that what you're asking?
With General Michelle, when he was at Shelby,
Right.
that was the big project that we got
Okay.
involved with. Are we pretty well set on that.
So,
is what I'm
we have done all the proof of principles for the port. We brought an active duty unit in. Remember, we put some paratroopers in trees down at Camp Shelby. That was the proof of principle for that port and Camp Shelby being a training facility for the active Army. That has happened and we continue to market it. I will tell you there's some headwinds because it's hard to get the Army to move. They like training at federal installations. But I'm telling you, Camp Shelby is poised to be a preparatory training venue for when that infantry brigade goes to Fort Polk. They can do the entry at the Port of Gulfport. We have done that proof of principle. They can train at Shelby. We've done that proof of principle. They can hold their equipment at Shelby while they go back home, and then they can meet up with their equipment at Alexandria, Louisiana for training. We continue to sell that, Mr. Chairman, but no further movement from active duty. And I'm not going to blame COVID, but that probably has something to do with it.
General, I appreciate your time today. Unfortunately, I've got to get MEMA in here, so I'm going to ask him to come in, but y'all can continue to talk while we're going through this.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate
Senator? Yes, sir. Yeah. The reason I'm asking a question. So, you know, you couldn't talk to him at 5, 6 o'clock our time. Because he was asleep. I asked him after the first week, I said, well, how was it? He said, it's good. He said, you gotta remember something. I'm 34, most of those guys are 22. They called him, old man.
We are a little bit late. I'm very familiar with MEMA's budget and look forward to getting an update from y'all.
We can make up some time, sir.
Yes, sir. We are on YouTube. We have Senator Kelvin Butler is joining us off campus.
Got him. All right.
Thank you. And so just I'll remind you to make sure your microphone is in the on position with the switch would be closest to you, it would be slid towards you.
I do believe that's it, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll go ahead and turn over the floor. Thank you very much.
Okay. I just want to thank everybody for allowing us to come in today. I know that we get letters in the mail that says, hey, you can come if you want to. And I think it's an opportunity to talk to you about what we've done for the state of Mississippi and let you know where those dollars have been the last year and kind of sustain where we've been going. So in light of that, we'll just jump right into it. If you look at where we are today, and I like to update everyone is that today is the 687th day of the COVID response state of Mississippi, the longest one we have ever had. And that includes all of our partners, Department of Health and others that stay in there with us. And that's where you're going to see that the majority of some of these funds have been used over the years. So looking at page 1, we're our budget that we've been allowed to present is very close to what legislative budget office has. And I can tell you that if we're able to sustain that MEMA is going to be able to do their job. And that is even on the unprecedented, the unknown things. So we're very satisfied with where we are at that mark. But it's one of those things that tomorrow, one of those undeclared events is North Mississippi. It's going to get some sleet. It's going to get some ice and over bridges. Some things are going to happen and we're going to have to respond to it. But that's nothing I can plan for. So as we get into this, I want to talk about disaster trust, what the draw was there from the disasters and how it hit that disaster trust and why we're asking for certain things to be refilled. You've got a PowerPoint in front of you, and then I think you all have we have a sheet for the LBO representative to give them some of the final numbers. So Mississippi.
Mac, before you get too deep, I just want to let you know, we're going to be, you're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6 or 7 minutes
Gotcha.
to go through this, and then we'll ask a couple of rounds of questions for
That's
you, if
what
you
I
don't
wanna
mind.
get to.
Thank you, sir.
I'm just gonna barely skim these, but this is for y'all to take, so you can be able to tell your constituents kind of where we are. So our salaries, we're looking at a plus up of about $95,000 on the front sheet, and that has to do with where we are today. We were at 123 before COVID. We're at 194 right now. And the next 2.5 years is going to be the process of processing the COVID response, all the reimbursements from FEMA. So once you preload on a disaster, I've got to carry that through. And that's where the ARPA request comes in a little bit later. For about 2.5 years is what I've got to plan for to be able to sustain those operations and get those funds going. So we'll jump right off of the front one there, the 721. That's the biggest keep that I want to keep. And then if we look at the equipment, the CAP equipment, the quality of drones, and why do we have a drone program? We did not have one. Right now, we're the largest drone program in the state of Mississippi, 17 pilots. I have a pilot in every district and almost 2. What did that do for the state of Mississippi? 37 people were located on silver alerts, amber alerts, a 5-year-old boy in the wintertime, and a 77-year-old man. We saved 37 lives last year, and the locals don't have that capability, and we're able to sustain it. On the backside of that, FEMA doesn't come to town to do damage assessments. We did it electronically with the drones. We're doing mitigation, doing LiDAR for flood capabilities, and being able to project where flood waters are going. So it compounded into something we didn't really know the state needed. And that's where the difference of the budget request, we're asking for a little bit more in there to really increase that capability and to be able to sustain that long term. Getting back to the about 4th page in disaster trust fund to hit it. This is the match assistance. This shows what the draw and what the state needed for us to be able to do in all of our state disasters, paying that the state match, as we have 21 declared federal disasters open at this time, and we're continuing doing those project worksheets at the local level. About 1,690 of those projects that we're continuing to monitor each and every day. So the reimbursements from FEMA back into that account was $4 million. The match was $7 million, and then our expense to respond to events with the disaster reservists and others is about a $13 million draw, that kind of the interchangeable of funds in there. And the next page looks at, I would just want to fill the gas tank back to full in the disaster trust, and that's kind of what we've averaged out are those numbers. If I can get 10 million in that account, we come very close to last year. I think we had 600, maybe $400,000 left in the disaster trust fund. We came very close to for running out of funds for disaster. So this is the average of what the state needs to make it. 2018 was the only year I did not have a federally declared disaster. I've had 12 since 2019. So, but this is kind of like the minimum of the gas tank of gas that you would want to do. The next is disaster assistance repair program. What are we doing with those funds you give us? The DART program. If you look at those states, those counties within the states on that page, 145 homes were repaired when FEMA did not come to town. We had 24 severe weather events and responses, which FEMA, we did not meet a federal declaration. So this is the money that y'all give us to operate in that program that went right to a homeowner. We gave them building supplies, we organized free labor, and rebuilt that house and made it where it was livable. Not necessarily the 3-car garage, but we made it accessible and livable for that person. So it's a great program, and we're asking to really be able to do that. The disaster assistance repair program on the next page, it kind of gives you a snapshot since 2018 when you authorized this program for us to do. $3 million, 25 counties were served, 484 survivors' homes were repaired, and they were able to be put back in. When FEMA comes, we're able to give them funds through the FEMA machine, and it does not draw out of this program. So this is when we do not have that federal declaration. The next page is yellow. It's a COVID-19 mission, just to kind of update you there. The number 1 block, that is what that we have had to expend in the whole COVID response for the state of Mississippi, $239 million. Let's cut that short. So what have we done? We use CARES Acts that funds that you were able to give us to maximize those. So that green and number 2, that we cut that debt down that much that the state had to be on the block for. Number 3, the block there, FEMA reimbursements, we continue to apply for those. We're continuing to process them. So $40 million has already been paid back into the state coffer. So we're right back into 100% reimbursement. And then we have 7 reimbursement projects that are currently in the queue for approval, 89 million. So as we said we would do, we use the funds up front and we're getting that 100% reimbursement to get that back in. So that's cut down from 239 million to 56 million. So I think we're staying good on what we promised that we would do and how we would manage those funds for the state of Mississippi. So on the last page is the ARPA request. And this is where I want to extend the mobility and MEMA to be nimble. If we could look at that page for the disaster reservist program for the salaries that we need to be able to operate the state's emergency logistical operations center, which has been a jewel, I think, in the state of Mississippi. We're ready. We have those supplies on hand. We're shipping them all over the state right now, continuing to keep mandatory operations up and working with the Department of Health. That gives us that 2.5-year buffer that I'm talking about that I need to really get through the COVID process, and it gives us to be liquid left and right, so to speak, to be able to handle all the current and future disasters that we've got coming on board. Gentlemen, that's it in a nutshell, and I want to answer any questions and go down not too many rabbit holes, but if you've got them, I'm here.
Senator Seymour, any questions? Senator Moore.
You mentioned when you were going through here talking about your program that allows you to be able to forecast flood heights. And
yes, sir.
What program is that?
It has to do with our mitigation department. And what we did, we took one of the drones and we had a company that wanted to sell us something. We said, well, let's prove it first. So we're shooting LIDAR up in the Delta right now, looking at that flooding that happened. We did not get a declaration for, and we're doing today's, and then we're going back and looking at previous storms, and we're looking at rainfall and others that we can project where that water is going. And I can tell you that 25 houses out of 40 houses are going to flood. We need to get those people out. And also that allows us to build a BRIC project, building resilience in communities, into the mitigation system for FEMA. Once we get enough data where we can look at, do we build a reservoir in the Delta, since we're not getting any pumps like the Ross Barnett, we can catch water, hold it purposefully, and then when we got a drought, we pump it to farmers. They can use it, be a dual purpose. So it's not a big script, but it's been done before in other states, and we really think that we're going to be able to get that data together. It's going to help us in those communities just continue to flood.
Well, the reason I asked that, Chairman, that program that these folks have on the coast, QRIS.
Yes, sir.
I know you've heard of that.
Yes, sir.
It's amazing, Scott. NOAA does a great job of providing.
Absolutely.
They take it and enhance it.
We have sat down with them,
Yes.
and their wind data is phenomenal. They can tell you that 75 miles an hour worth of wind hit the back northeast corner of the house where the insurance company might say no.
They have been trying to get the state to work with for quite some time.
Yep. Not sure which one, but I have been in conversations with them 2 to 3 times, and we're trying to find the right place and how to do it. My detractor the last time was that for the homeowner to access that information, they were going to have to pay like $50 fee. And I said, that's a no-go.
No,
I can't do that. So I'm partnering with the insurance department, with Mike Cheney's office, and we think we might have a funder that would be able, because if it's public information, the public needs to be able to get to that. So I think we're making great headway.
the beauty of this program is, I think about 55,000, everybody in the state can have an
Absolutely
on their phone. And
We'll continue to work on that.
I think we were at that same meeting on the second floor, well, 22nd or whatever it was over there, but we're getting very close to, I think, being able to bring that into totality.
they take what NOAA has.
Kelvin, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Mac, I do, in that same vein, I would like for one of your specifically your floodplain manager
Yes.
to come in and talk to us about mapping 2.0
Yes.
and we need some clarity on some of that stuff. And then also the work that is ongoing in South Mississippi
Yes,
with
sir.
respect to the remapping program
Yes.
or the testing that we're doing down in our neck of the woods for
Stacy
that.
Ricks is the
Yes, sir.
guy been floodplain for us for
Yep.
years and years. He
Look-
teaches nationally. We'll get that scheduled, sir.
Well,
Absolutely.
we look forward to you taking care of us again
we'll
this
do it.
coming weekend when it gets all nice and cold. And
If you guys are going home this weekend, you live on the coast, you better get on down there. You know, last year, same, what kind of forecast?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get some sleet, some black ice on some bridges. Y'all be careful.
thank you very much for everything that you and your agency does, your men and women.
North too, north
Yep.
tomorrow, Friday. I'm talking to him on Friday. He's gonna be to buying on Friday. No, it's
Oh,
not
no.
this time. Well, Mother Nature has a vote and I don't get to cancel her vote. So,
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time coming in today.
Thank
Look
you,
forward to
gentlemen.
working with you in the
I
future.
appreciate it so much.
Great, thank you. I didn't ask him.
I just was amazed when they pulled up the information on Ida. They were within 2 inches.
Isn't that the truth? Let me, I get what you're talking about. You know, that's not, I'm not a technical guy. You know, I work for the county. I just get it done. I'm gonna get, share the information. You're welcome.
Hello, how are you? I think I'm okay. Trying to keep all my stuff straight here. Sir, how are y'all doing? Y'all ready for me or not me? How are you, sir? Big show. It's kind of late. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to work with you. Okay, where do y'all want me to? Yeah, I got one more before y'all get it. We're running just a little bit behind. Just want to get y'all back up. Okay, no problem. Thanks a lot. And I'm sorry.
I'm sorry that we all run a little bit behind. And it seems like it gets squeezed, but what I would like for you to do is to give me a quick overview. I haven't had a chance to work on your budget before. You and I will work together a little bit more when we get offline. I see that you've got some general fund request. You're split. You've got a little bit of federal funds that come in, but if you would, give me a quick overview in about 5 minutes or so. And then, like I said, you and I are going to be working together. We'll get it straightened back out. But go ahead, sir.
That's fine. That's why so what I've got inside our annual report, just for y'all to look at, a lot of folks aren't necessarily real familiar with the Board of Animal Health, so this just give you so I've got 3 documents. The top one is really just a one-sheeter, real quick overview of our funding request. So
primarily because, as you said, we're a split federal state funds. I focus when I come here with y'all on the federal, I'm sorry, the state funding portion of it, because that's what really matters over here. And so you see the top number, that number of what we're asking, 1,584,880, is based on the 4 items below it. Number 1, restoring LBR reduction. Number 2, due to a lot of growth in backyard poultry, one of the programs we have is poultry surveillance that looks for avian influenza, other diseases, to protect our commercial poultry industry, to make sure if there's any diseases. So this is an individual that is needed primarily in the north part of the state that will do poultry surveillance and backup and livestock inspectors that go to sale barns, and a salary fringe and a truck that's needed. So you see that amount there. The third one, we have a program that's funded by USDA. It's a federal regulation law that involves the ability to trace diseased animals, and it involves tagging primarily cattle, but all livestock. And over the years, we've been given funding for databases, equipment to read electronic ear tags, and that program, because of the federal budget not being completely passed and all that, is going to have a $25,000 reduction this year. These are to buy electronic ear tags that we use at stockyards, sale barns, to be able to track animals. And so we're requesting $25,000 for that program. Number 4 is strictly, the lady that does my budget is not here. She's out sick. All this represents is apparently what the personnel board project is going through. And these are the amounts of dollars. I just have it here that is above what is currently funded in our budget. Just and the next 2 sheets, and Tina, I think, understands where we are, just shows what the personnel board had sent to y'all, but there's some changes we're working behind the scenes that didn't make it to what y'all have, and that's what this represents. No change in money. So that's really what we're talking about. That was too fast, sorry. But
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like I said, we'll work through this. I see that you did show this at the minimum salaries for the SEC squared, and that's what I was looking for.
Some of their salaries were higher than what we thought they should be. And so basically that third spreadsheet's trying to it doesn't change the overall dollars, but it tries to equalize out across our personnel.
Okay. You have any questions? Any questions? Go ahead.
You're talking about tagging livestock.
Yes.
Tell me a little more about that.
In order to trace disease quickly, in the brucellosis and TB program, USDA had metal. If you have cattle, you've been aware of the metal ear tags. Those are going away in a year to 2 years. And USDA and we're all transitioning to these electronic, a little round button radio frequency. They use a little handheld. It's like dogs with microchips. And we read those, they suck them into a spreadsheet. Veterinarians can create health certificates. And we get the benefit to us as state animal health officials, veterinarians, we get real-time movement data. And there's less errors in transposing these numbers by hand onto a piece of paper. And so that's part of what we're.
Senator Butler, you have any questions, sir?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for coming in today, and we will work through this. And like I said, I'll be working with you on this.
This is always just an early year introductory kind of thing. Numbers haven't even, so I understand how this goes. So I think this is my 23rd time up here. I appreciate all the help you'll always give us.
Well, thank you. And you're not over the Beaver Control Board, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Somebody else started asking me about that earlier. I was like, well, wait a minute. I don't know about that. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Or the wild pigs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only if it's water.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything else? Do you have any questions? Or anything? All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Nice to meet you.
All right, PSC will be coming in next. And they have 15 minutes as well, so we're kind of back on track now. Thank goodness. Yeah, cattle. Put an RFID tag in some of these people's head. Mhm. Mhm. We got 15 minutes. We are on YouTube as well as Senator Butler is joining us via Zoom. So when you do speak, make sure your microphone is turned on, and which will be the switch will be closest to you. Give us 1 second to get all organized here. Service Commission. Commissioner, it's always good to have you come in. You're going to present today?
I can kick on, turn to Commissioner Bailey.
Which one?
It doesn't matter to me.
Good times. We get both of y'all.
We've noticed it as a public meeting, so. We all got us? Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting us come today, and I've just got a short statement to turn over to my colleague, Commissioner Bailey. We're in a unique position today that our request this year was $4,412,000, $4,412,018, and LBR was at $4,724,901. The difference in those two figures, and the reason LBR had recommended that increase above what we had asked for in our request, was to get 14 of our PNs, our employees, up to that minimum salary position. And that is in pretty good measure what in our regular budget that we are asking for. And of course, we've got line item there, the realignment cost and others. Only thing I'll note on page 1 that I would point out to you is the 2023 grant, which is given to the commission from the U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline Hazardous Safety Materials Administration, better known as PHMSA, may be a less amount this year simply because with the pandemic, there's been less travel. Those are the folks who go out and inspect natural gas pipelines throughout the state to ensure their integrity and safety. And because of the restrictions this year, that could affect that just a little bit. On the second page is our no-call budget. If you see, our request was $66,372. LBR was at $66,372. Last year, y'all were gracious enough to give us over $287,000 to build to rebuild actually the no-call database. That software had expired. I think it was close to 20 years old at the time. That is being worked out. It's been diligently done by our employees and should be completed by the end of this fiscal year. That is where we take in complaints. That's also where our investigative staff goes through those. And it was just a complete and utter dysfunctional mess up until this. And so it looks like that should be completed by the end of the year. That's my summary, and turn it over to Commissioner Bailey.
Yeah, I'll tell you, and I'd usually do this at the beginning of the hearing. We will have about 10 more minutes to go. And if you need that much time, otherwise we'll just we'll go to questions. So just to let you know, you got about 10 minutes.
All right, that's fine. Can you hear me? I don't think there's a whole lot more to add. Commissioner Preston did a great job providing a highlight here.
is you have the.
Excuse me, Commissioner, slide that button towards you. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Get right up high.
Kelvin, you can hear him okay, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you there. Again, Commissioner Presley, did a great job of really highlighting some aspects. I think captured most of everything that we wanted to cover here regarding the PSE request, where the legislative budget office is. And just want to really emphasize this salary realignment, what's going on in that regard as we really redefine some of the job functions, or more or less the job titles, and ensure they meet the responsibilities and duties of our staff at PSC, and make them much more competitive in salaries with the private sector. So we keep that staff, pay a livable wage, and of course, compete for that talent. I know within our office, hiring for a vacant position, we understand the challenges out there. So we're certainly grateful of this realignment, the salaries that have been granted thus far for those employees that are eligible for that. We still have some that need to meet the minimum standard, and we're getting toward that. And this elbow advance, as well as the other dollars associated, that is going to be most helpful going forward. Commissioner Presley mentioned the no-call database, in which we're in the process of finalizing, getting that up on its feet. One thing we do want to put to this committee here is internally we have what's called the case tracking system. And it is our software where all our legal filings, testimonies, comments, other data from utilities, from commenters and others gone in, all our docket cases. That software platform is also dated, and it will not have the ability to interface with our no-call software. So something that we want to make aware that we're probably in the near term going to be putting together some numbers for looking at to update and modernize that case tracking software, that system that contains all our data, filings, etc., to have a modern system that's quickly searchable and creates, really benefit for those stakeholders, consumers, information, and for our ability to compile information when necessary. So that's just something I want to put out there. No request this year, but we certainly may be coming for that. That I'll follow with the questions. I do want to emphasize I left some annual reports right up there. So you're right. I want to share them with the folks here, and certainly provide an excellent condensed recap of our activities over the last fiscal year.
We'll have one short one. What do you receive federal funds for?
Federal funds at this point in time, Commissioner Presley talked about our pipeline safety division. Most of their funds support comes from federal PHMSA, the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, and most support for that division comes from those federal funds. And from time to time, they get included in the overall appropriation, or at least describing that, but it is a separate line item against appropriation.
Mr. Chairman, that actually comes into us as a reimbursable expense. So we have to make those expenses, then those come back. And that's why there's a fluctuation based on what we actually spent.
Okay. Senator Butler. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Broadband. What are you guys are looking at? I know with the new money's coming down. What are y'all looking at in the South? Well, I guess it's the state as far as increasing broadband, especially in the rural areas in Southwest Mississippi.
Thank you for that question, Senator Butler. I think it's probably one of the foremost things on our mind right now, what we can do. The commission under state law has to provide oversight with relation to federal funds that come from the Universal Service Fund. We've benefited as a state of getting $495 million in total for the from the Universal Service Fund for the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund that the FCC puts out. We issued all of the appropriate certificates except one this year for that to go out, and there's still outstanding questions both on the state level and the federal level related to that particular provider as to whether or not they comply with the federal rules. And so outside of that, that brings that total to around $440 million.
495 total. There's 50 million hanging out there. That's one thing where we're providing oversight on that. And we're not only ahead of the published schedule and the requirements within the federal rules for deployment, but also are extremely ahead in our fiber to the home projects, particularly among rural electric cooperatives, from where we normally would have believed or we would be at this point in their published schedule of deployment. They're ahead of that. And they're definitely ahead of what's required within the rules and regulations and the federal law that we have to administer. Secondly, with that, I've got with me Ty James, who is quarterbacking our efforts. And I think this is of particular interest to the legislature this year, and that is on broadband mapping. We have an utter complete mess when it comes to broadband mapping in the state to look at where service is actually provided, what speeds are there. We know that there have been discrepancies in what some carriers have reported. We wrote a letter last year to the FCC asking that they look into some of these matters, in particular broadband deployment and whether the speeds were there that were published and were required. We have a partnership with the National Telecommunications Information Agency, which is actually this year going to be really the lead agency on the federal side of putting out much of the federal broadband dollars. We instituted a partnership with them back in late spring of this year. Ty quarterbacks that for the agency. That is a cost in which it's not costing a taxpayer dollar, not a penny for that. We're able, through our partnership and existing law that is on the books today, to share those resources. So we have an in-kind a commitment of about $8,000 a year. And that is just related to time spent on those projects, where we are bringing in information, GIS data, to populate a map that will be used in conjunction with what is going on the federal level. You've got two sets of maps out there. You've got a federal map that comes from the FCC, and then what we're looking at is a state partnership. We're already getting that data in related to where broadband availability is in Mississippi, and that will also integrate with it consumer experience. So right now, if I'm in rural Etowah County and I do a speed test through the Ookla app, Ookla has their data that they collect at that moment is captured in the map that we're working with the NTIA on. So we're not only getting the information only from carriers as to where service is provided, but we're also getting actual consumer experience. That's going to give the legislature a great tool to be able to overlay. We have the ability to have, I believe, 20 partnerships within that mapping program. Again, not costing the taxpayers a penny. We are allocating some work to that each year, but not to any broad cost. You will be able to take rural healthcare centers. If you have that GIS data, and we can tell you, once this is done, we can tell you how close broadband services are to that rural health center or that school. You can overlay it with highway information. Any type of public data in partnerships with other agencies, we can do that. So if the legislature, let's just say we're interested to see how close to rural healthcare facilities broadband is for telehealth and telemedicine. Once this is complete, we would be able to do that. So we're working on it not only from a construction, funding, deployment standpoint, but also on the mapping side, because that is going to be the Rosetta Stone, as many of y'all know. I know the chairman particularly does. He's been interested in these issues for a long time. That is going to be the Rosetta Stone of how these funds not only have to flow from NTIA, but how they have to be spent by the legislature this coming session. So that is going to be the agency that's going to determine that. And luckily, we're already into a almost a year-long partnership with them. Been a little struggle, quite frankly, to get the data from carriers as to where that service exists, because there's not an existing state law that requires a carrier to tell anyone and on the state agency level where they have service. So we sent out a letter in the last 60 days to carriers asking them to send in GIS mapping data, which they have very easily available on their systems, so that we could share that in a confidential manner with the NTIA. Now, we'll say our rural electric cooperatives completely have complied with that and sent in their GIS data, but many of the other carriers, corporate carriers, have refused to do that and have not sent that. We don't have any hammer within our toolbox to force them to do that. We were hoping to rely upon their wishes to have broadband expansion to get that done. But our rural electric cooperatives, Ty, you correct me if I'm wrong, have fully complied with that and sent those shape files in so we could use that map. So we're attacking it from two different ways.
Okay, the other question I'd like to add to that, we talk about the rural electric power companies, when they do they partner with the Public Service Commission, or do the Public Service Commission partner with them on where the needs are in the rural broadband? Do you understand my question?
Yes,
How
sir.
does that work?
Yes, sir. One of the wisest things that was done, and I would point this out for the committee and really for the whole, in the Broadband Accessibility Act that was passed back in 2019, it required rural electric cooperatives that if they were to go into the broadband business, that they could not cherry pick neighborhoods, one neighborhood over another. It says if you go into that business, you must provide service, must create a plan to provide service to all your members. Rural electric cooperatives are the only entity providing broadband in Mississippi that are required to serve everyone. They're the only ones. And so they don't have the option to pick and choose. Now, the law, therefore, Senator Butler, sets into motion a process by which, for instance, in Alcorn County, Mississippi, I represent Alcorn County. When they began their project, of course, they created a plan to serve everyone. And in less or a little over a year, we now have fiber to the home available to every single citizen in Alcorn County. Anybody that gets ACE Power can get fiber to the home. Same thing in Prentiss County. We're soon to complete Northeast Electric Power Association's project. That'll be around 19,000 customers, and every single house at the most rural end of the dirt road has access of fiber to the home. They had to begin their plan to require that. We, of course, look to make sure they're complying with that portion of the law. But secondly, when they take federal money, particularly the Universal Service Fund money, I'm fortunate to serve as one of 4 state commissioners around the country on the federal state joint board on universal service. So we look at the policies that come into the expenditure of about $8 billion a year from the feds, the FCC, in conjunction with, I've got a colleague from South Dakota, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island on that federal state joint board. And we look at that from how those dollars go out. The Universal Service Fund dollars that I mentioned earlier, the $495 million, absent the $55 million that we've not approved yet, those dollars have to be spent and service has to be turned on to 40% of all the locations within 3 years and to 100% of the locations within 6 years. Now, the great thing that we can report to you is in Alcorn County, I'm just using that as an example, the Alcorn Electric Power Association received several $1 million from the USF through the RDOF fund. They had 3 years to get it to 40% of Alcorn County. They had 6 years to get it to all of Alcorn County. 40% of their locations they were awarded funds for, and 100% for where they were awarded funds for. They're through. They're completely ahead of schedule.
Just for clarification, that's not necessarily for the entire county, but it's by the census tract that they were awarded for.
That's correct. That's why I went back to correct it. But for the actual, it's the census tracts, but they really track it, Mr. Chairman, based on those locations. So let's just say they were awarded for 5,000 locations. 40% of those have to have service. And they have to, by the way, come to the commission every year, report their plans and how they spent the dollars last year, and file with us a prospective plan for the future year. And so that we not only take a look back, we take a look forward, and that has to be recertified by the end of September every year. All commissioners have to vote on that. It goes through a process, and those dollars have to be approved by October 1, or they can't get funding from the FCC. So we have what I would argue to you, a very tight ship on that. And of course, many of the federal regs drive that because they're already in place.
So help me recollect. I just want to make sure I have the timing right. For the EPAs were awarded RDOF money prior, and RDOF money was deployed prior to the CARES Act money that the legislature gave.
Yes, sir. So the timeline of that would be that the legislature appropriated 75, all these years are running together. I don't know if it's the pandemic or what. The 75 million was appropriated in the session that wouldn't ever end was in 2020. In December of 2020, passed the CARES Act, the FCC announced our awardment of 495 million. Yes, sir. Okay. So it was CARES Act first, then RDOF.
Okay. And then we came back last year and awarded additional dollars, correct?
I'm not aware of any dollars that were awarded last year. That was last year's, I think, big enchilada was the dark fiber bill.
Okay. And so in Senator or Chairman Carter's public hearing that he had over the summer, I believe you came in and you spoke to the work that the EPAs had done at the time or had accomplished as of that time. And there were some numbers, and I'm not holding you to those numbers. That's not the purpose of this hearing. But how many homes did they say that they passed? Do you have that number off the
Well,
top of
I
your head?
think in totality of the CARES Act, specific to the 75 million that y'all put in from the legislature and they matched it with 75, that's going to be north of 40,000. When you look at the dollars awarded from the RDOF, that's north of 200,000. Now, some of those, Mr. Chairman, may be the same house because, you know, as Michael Callahan testified to, you can't drop broadband out of a helicopter. You've got to start somewhere to go. Some of those could be in the same census tracts because when the CARES Act funds were appropriated, we didn't have a state map. We're working on that today in conjunction with others, but there's nothing out there to go with except the FCC's map. The FCC's map does not understate coverage, it overstates coverage because it's carrier driven. We knew that if a census block, when y'all appropriated the 75 million, if the FCC's map says it's not served, you can bet your bottom dollar it ain't served. The problem with the FCC's maps are that they show areas served that are not. It's the opposite problem. So when y'all base that 75 million on unserved areas based on the FCC's map, it by nature captured some of the same houses.
And also by nature, there were times where fiber was put into the ground to homes that are already served. So they're not unserved households.
That's correct.
Are they still being counted as pass-bys or pass-throughs?
No, that would be caught in the populated data that we're already getting. So go back to Alcorn County. There would be census blocks there where in the city of Corinth, for instance, it shows that Corinth was unserved in 2020. That we have received all the shape files from Alcorn County, correct? So those shape files today have been sent to NTIA and it shows all of Alcorn County served. So that same home today would show in nature on those maps different. Would have showed unserved in 2020, served in 2022.
All right, I want to get back to the budget. So, you know, something that I noticed that was a little bit different. Your SEC squared information is in a different format than most of my other budgets. And I found that to be a little interesting. And it looks like LBR included your SEC squared data, wherein most of my other agencies, they have not. So I want to keep an eye on that. I want to see what that is or see what's happened there. Mr. Chairman, okay. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you joining us. Of course, you have the floor whenever, anytime you'd like. Any other questions? Kelvin, do you have any other questions, Senator Butler?
No, sir. No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Seymour? Any other questions? We are a little bit past our time, but you know, obviously we'll work through this as we move forward. Look forward to working with you and we'll continue to look at what your general fund numbers look like and we'll go from there. Just give me 1 second.
To verify with you all of the amounts that you have in the SEC squared, those are above the LBR amount that you're requesting.
LBR was higher for salaries than the request from the agency. And they attributed that to the
14 positions.
The 14 positions that had to be adjusted as per the minimums for SEC squared, correct?
Yes.
And that was not included in your request information or the information that you provided to LBR?
I didn't know that we would have any minimal salaries when I did the report.
Right, most of the other ones have been where they've had it in the request, but they were not added or they were not given that in LBR. So that's why I was asking. Under LBR. So instead they were jumping.
Right.
Okay. All right. All right, excellent. Okay. All right, any other questions? Anyone else? I'll go ahead and consider this hearing closed then. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm still going to go back and look.